First of all, it's important to recognise that it's still defined as a syndrome, and because it's a syndrome, i.e. something which has no thoroughly understood explanation, it's an invisible illness to some people. There are no objective signs on examination, no objective diagnostic tests as yet, and consequently patients tend to be vulnerable to sceptics. The healthcare professional looking after such a patient has actually got a duty of care to provide assistance in negotiating the healthcare benefits and social care systems. And so it's not good enough just to send someone away with the diagnosis of ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, and say, look, just allow the passage of time and it'll get better, or here's some pills, take these, and don't bother me again. It's incumbent upon every medical professional to provide appropriate assistance, either by way of helping with supportive statements and helping out with filling in the appropriate forms and providing a signature at the bottom of them. This condition affects people in varying degree. There are 4 categories defined originally in a report by the Chief Medical Officer, defined as mild, moderate, severe and very severe. Mildly affected people are often still working, but often in order to try and maintain this working routine, they have to sleep, go to bed when they get home from work, sleep all night, get up, haul themselves out of bed the next day, and they quite frequently sleep all weekend, and their social life has taken a dive. The absolutely typical patient is a young professional who has perhaps got a young family, taken on a big mortgage, and he or she can't afford to stop work. So they actually hammer on with the work that they feel they must do to support their family and to continue servicing the mortgage. Then there are the moderately affected group. They are almost universally unable to work, but they can manage for themselves at home. They can potter around at home, do a little bit of housework, perhaps a little bit of cooking, but not very much. But they are basically economically unproductive because they cannot get back to work, particularly the business of commuting, say, 9 or 10 miles into work and back again, and coping with all the demands that their career had previously put on them. Then there are the severe patients who are housebound for much of the time and often bedbound. They need help with all but the most basic activities of daily living. Finally, the very severe group who are completely bedbound, sometimes completely mute, because the business of speaking is so tiring they just can't speak. They often end up needing to be tube fed because eating is a physical effort which is sometimes beyond them.
In Scotland we have what's called SIGN, Scottish Intercollegiate Guidelines Network. But it was reckoned by public health that there was not the level of evidence, the strength of evidence to call it a guideline, a SIGN guideline. It's an ill-understood clinical area, as we've already heard, and we'll hear more later. It is also, I think we all appreciate, it can be a very controversial area of practice, and much research still needs to be undertaken. But we felt it was important to reflect to our colleagues what was as good clinical practice as we could express at the time. It's important to go through a good clinical examination, as we were taught to do. I've highlighted erect and supine blood pressure because we have to think of postural hypotension, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. But patients don't come to us with a diagnosis on the forehead. When patients come with fatigue, lethargy, it's important to make sure that this is partly, ME/CFS is part of our differential diagnosis, but we must be in the outlook of what other illnesses could be causing it. And quite rightly, as you said earlier on, even illnesses such as HIV can present in a very insidious way. It's important we don't miss these illnesses either. Therefore, you've got to be on the lookout for these red flags.
Now, over the years, there's been a great deal of criticism from patients, health professionals, even our friends in Parliament, that not enough research was going into the biomedical aspects of this illness. So, in 2009, in response to all this criticism to fund biomedical research, the MRC set up a group which is chaired by a wonderful chap called Professor Stephen Holgate, who's Professor of Immunopharmacology down at the University of Southampton. And I'm a member of this group, and we sat and we had working groups and meetings and whatever, and we produced a list of what we felt were key biomedical research priorities which needed funding for this illness. And £1.5 million of ring-fence funding has been provided by the MRC. In December 2011, 5 grants were rewarded in relation to this ring-fence funding. And in October last year, we decided we would also set up a UK research collaborative for everyone who's involved in this illness, and that's big pharmaceutical companies. I've got a meeting with GlaxoSmithKline in 2 weeks' time to discuss this. We want researchers, existing researchers, new researchers, research funding charities. So this will bring together all these different people.
What I want to talk about is the current experience of ME patients at ground level in Northern Ireland. And for most patients, that is not a good experience. As far back as 1996, the Royal College of General Practitioners and psychiatrists and physicians warned if a patient had ME, that didn't say that ME was a psychiatric condition. There should be no such equivalence. Nearly all studies, they said, showed that between 1/4 and 1/3 of those who fulfill criteria for ME do not fulfill any criteria for psychiatric disorder. There can be no simple equation of CFS with a psychiatric disorder. Nice reading between the lines take the same view. They say that ME patients have capacity. One of the quotations is that healthcare professionals should recognise that the person with ME is in charge of the aims of the programme. We will get nowhere with ME until we get more research along the lines that Dr. Shepherd has indicated. It's disappointing that so far the NHS has only come up with research providing ME patients with coping strategies. That won't do. What we want is a cure, and we won't have a cure until we work out what the pathology of this disease is. So, as Dr. Shepherd has told you, there's been a welcome change of direction at the Medical Research Council. Instead of pouring all the money into psychiatric research, they've now started to direct it towards the cardiology and the autonomic dysfunction of the illness. That came about, by the way, as the result of a patient initiative. So patients from this group here collected £3,000 and a lot more than that, and other groups in Northern Ireland did the same. That was forwarded to a charity called ME Research UK in Perth in Scotland. Greg mentioned that. We don't want to be fed placebos or coping strategies. We want a full-blooded search after cure. I'd like to see doctors and patients engaging and going after this illness properly. So I think we need a new proper alliance between doctor and patient, and I hope that in Newry this afternoon we have started that process.